Welcome, guys. We're back for another episode of The Lock-In. I'm David Lavin. I'm joined by Slender Man himself, Dara O'Carney. Not a pick on him, I tell you. How is that diet going?
Not going so well since I came back. I kind of slipped back into routines. As you noted, Murray is a feeder. And while she theoretically got behind the idea of me being on a diet and was very impressed that I had shedded weight, she kept going, oh, well, you can just have this yogurt. And sure, here's a slice of cake. And I'm afraid to weigh myself now. I'm pretty sure I put on some weight since I came back.
Oh dear. Well, look, this week I am delighted to say we are joined by a great friend. She is a Grosvenor pro, and she will be hosting the upcoming Malta Poker Festival in the Portomasso Casino, just down the road from where I'm sitting right now. She is Katie Swift. Katie, welcome.
Hi guys, thanks for having me on the show. Good to be here. Good to see you both.
It's great to see you too, Katie. Look, I want to talk all about your ambassadoring and various hosting duties shortly, but let's jump straight into that story that just refuses to go away, frankly. It's, of course, Robbi Jade Lew and Garrett Adelstein's drama. On the last lock-in, the story was just breaking, or maybe it was a few days old, and I think Dara and I called for cam heads, said that people had to be very careful with accusations being flung around. Obviously, that all fell on deaf ears, as many of the loudest voices in the community decided that they just had to chime in. They couldn't resist, and they were maybe also interested in this story for the salaciousness, but also the clicks. I feel like some of them were after the clicks. Well, the burden of proof is not on Robbi to prove her innocence, but rather on her accusers to prove her guilt. She has followed through on her offer to take a lie detector test, which she passed. She is now also looking to file charges against her alleged co-conspirator, Brian Sagbigzal, the former Hustler live stream employee who, of course, swiped 15k in chips off her stack when no one was looking. Katie, what do you make of these latest developments?
I'll be honest with you. I haven't followed it in as much depth as other poker players have. I'm so busy. I can't keep up with it. I remember logging on to one of the sort of the streams, if you like, and I thought it was 10 minutes long. I thought, I can manage 10 minutes. I can sit in 10 minutes watching it. And during watching it, literally, I thought, this has been going on longer than 10 minutes, and realised it was 10 hours that this stream was about to go on for 10 hours. So I just logged off. I was like, I can't be doing 10 hours on this. So
it was also like 10 hours, like for like 9 days out of 11 or something. It was something ridiculous like that.
It was a lot. It really was a lot. So yeah, I've probably just touched the surface on, you know, reading a few tweets and different social media bits, grabbing a few little clips here and there. I've watched the hand. I have watched the hand through a few times. I personally don't think it's any cheating, but I could be wrong. That is literally from what I've seen a couple of times of the clip. I've called down. It was actually Andy Hills. I called him down once with Jack High. Very different situation. It was he was getting on my nerves, to be honest with you. So I called him down on the river with Jack High on a online pro sit and go game that we used to do. So it can be done, but it was a different scenario. Obviously, hers was on the turn with one card to come, so it was very different. But it does happen. It happens in the scenario where sometimes you just snap and you just go, do you know what? I've had enough of this. I think you're drawing. I think that I'm ahead of your draw. I'm going with it. Maybe not for that amount of money, but who knows? No one knows each other's bankrolls or bank accounts of what's a lot to us might be a little to someone else. So yeah, I mean, I've followed a little bit of it here and there, but nothing substantial.
Yeah, it should be noted that the polygraph tests are not admissible in court because I think they are not 100% accurate. You know, that would generally be, I think someone quoted recently, they're somewhere between 85 and 90% accurate, but it speaks kind of volumes, Robbi's willingness to take one and her change of heart with regard to wanting Mr. Sagbigzal prosecuted. They're certainly strong indicators of innocence, I would suggest. Add to that, how for a while there was a 200k plus bounty for anyone who would come forward and squeal on their co-conspirators, and that was left unclaimed. That's quite a big one as well. Another indicator worth noting. Dara, what does this all leave Team Garrett in? Like, it's becoming a little hard to stage now, right?
Yeah, it's. I mean, he basically went out on a limb early on, making an accusation based purely on that the hand looked funny, which, and then his side, let's say, seized on different data points, like her initial reluctance to prosecute Brian, the fact that she was going on podcasts. But to be honest, all of that stuff didn't really, none of it was an indicator of guilt in my mind. It just seemed to me that very quickly the poker world started consuming this as reality TV rather than anything else, and they just chose a side. And which side they chose kind of had more to do with their identity politics than anything else. People who identified with Garrett assumed, well, Garrett would never ever make up an unsubstantiated claim, and they contorted themselves into further and further gymnastics to try and use every single data point as a further vindication or indication that he was correct. And on the other side, people who decided that Robbi wasn't cheating were dismissing every data point. Both of our positions from the start was like, we don't really know. Let's wait for the official investigation. I had a very strong tendency to believe that there was no cheating, that everything could be explained by just a fairly inexperienced player going with their read on the day, and everything she did afterwards, it seemed more indicative of somebody who was innocent rather than guilty. You know, guilty people tend to lawyer up and just disappear and let the lawyers do this speaking. But her willingness to engage with the story, her willingness to go for a polygraph. Okay, it might be not 100% accurate, but like, even if it's only 90% accurate and you're lying, then in 90% of worlds you are going to be caught out by that. So it's Garrett's position also seems to have moved from he was convinced, or at least he said he was convinced, that he was cheating, to the point where he actually gave the money away that she had given him, treating it as entirely his own money. To now, in the latest LA Times piece, he said he thinks it's very likely. Now, very likely is an interesting phrase. Like, it doesn't even necessarily suggest probable. You know, it's very likely I might go out tomorrow, but that doesn't mean I'm definitely going out tomorrow, or I even think I'm probably going out tomorrow. He's in a really difficult position because he staked his reputation so much on that cheating had to be found, and he hired a private detective to go through the footage and produce, again, very inconclusive stuff. All the stuff that they came up with just looked like fairly inexperienced players, maybe soft playing each other because they knew each other. But I mean, we all kind of know that happens in these high stakes cash games anyway, but definitely nothing which amounted to cheating. So it now looks like the case just can't be proven against Robbi. And in fact, most people have decided she almost certainly wasn't cheating. And there has been a very clear shift of public opinion. Even people who were very strong Team Garrett now think he should just back down, admit he made a mistake, give the money back.
Yeah, to zoom through and maybe reiterate a couple of your points there, Robbi was a very willing participant on Joey's endless streamed shows, which, by the way, I believe he's threatening to call the lock-in, Dara. I don't know if you've heard this. Really, Joey? Really? You know,
he's been on the lock-in, so it's not like he can even claim...
I know, right? We'll do an investigation. On the show and
he said, "Oh, that's a good name. I'll take that."
He didn't lock me in with them when I thought they were 10 minutes long and realised they were 10 hours. I was out.
Yep.
But like you said, like, she did an LA Times piece, he's done an LA Times piece. It does feel like, you know, they've both grabbed onto the opportunity for notoriety. This clearly he came from the Survivor world, I think, one of those popular shows on TV for reality TV fans out there. Yeah, and then you mentioned there the money. He made a decision to give the money to Big Brothers, a very, you know, good charity to give money to. But there's another detail in that one too. Yesterday, from the perspective of when we're recording, so it'll probably be a few days ago now, Lew claimed that she asked him if the money could be split between a charity of his choice and a charity of her choice. And then he just unilaterally went and gave it all to a charity of his choice. So apparently that discussion had happened just before he'd made that donation. So even that's a little bit weird as well. Not a good look overall. Considering the consequences now for a while, I watched a clip on Twitter a couple of days ago in which Bart Hansen suggested that Adelstein would not be welcome on another live stream until he made this right, by which I think he basically meant gave the money back. It's hard to see him back down from his position now. As you said, I think in that article with LA Times, he was sort of talking about, I don't know if I'll even come back. I've always had this, you know, funny attitude about poker and whether I should be in it anyway, blah, blah, blah. And it was all this kind of, there was a lot of nonsense reflectiveness going on. It was a pretty actually skin crawly article, I must say. And I don't think he came across well in it. But could this be an ignominious end to a poker career that I guess was sort of peaking just a few short weeks ago, Dara?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely true that Garrett has sort of blown hot and cold on poker. He has disappeared from poker in the past, and from talking to people who know him very well, it does seem to be to do with genuine mental health issues, which obviously we're very sympathetic towards. This is if this is the end, it is a very ignominious way to leave. It leaves a really foul taste in the mouth. And on the subject of him being welcome on live streams, like, it's not just Robbi who we attempted to throw under the bus. It's also the live stream itself, Hustler, which was an amazing game for him. And he made millions in that game, or over $1 million, I believe. And it also definitely raised his star and his profile. And, you know, our friend Jason Tompkins tweeted that he's never seen anybody literally take such an amazing spot and just blow it for the sake of 135 grand, which was a small percentage of what he was making in that game. So the whole thing has been just very badly thought out by Garrett. If indeed there was any thought, he may just have reacted instinctively. It also has portrayed poker in general in a very bad light, just how quick people were to rush to judgment. And also to swing from one extreme to the other. Oh, she's definitely not cheating. Oh, she's definitely cheating. Oh, no, I think she's definitely not cheating again. It's like some lady, I'm sorry, I don't remember her name, but she tweeted the one thing that she's got out of this is if she ever has to face a jury of her peers, she wants absolutely no poker players on that jury because they make up their mind too quickly on relatively small data. And maybe that's not completely unexpected. I mean, poker is a game of incomplete information, so we are used to making snap judgments all the time. Oh, I think he's bluffing here because of this, or I think he's not bluffing because of that. So maybe poker doesn't produce the right type of mindset to deal with this sort of stuff.
Well, one final point on all of this, and I want to bring you in, Katie. Hopefully this will be a way to segue out of it, actually, is the normally quiet Tom Dwan has been one of the loudest voices since this story broke. And he actually got quite interrogatory with Lew while they were both appearing on Joey's stream. He called her out for collusion with Jacob Chavez, the player more commonly known these days as Rip, who staked her into the Hustler game. During this back and forth, Lew did admit, and Dara alluded to this a moment ago, that she soft played Chavez in one heads up pot that they played together on the stream. Now, soft playing is obviously not good to see, nor is it good when a player and their horse are in the same cash game. Dara, we did a lot of staking actually for tournaments, and obviously once in a while we would end up at the same table with one of the players we staked. It's not ideal, but there's no way we could ever, avoid, like, we wouldn't be in control of the seat draw, if you like, and there's no way we would ever soft play that person, nor would we expect them to soft play us. Cash games are a bit wonkier though, because you do sort of choose your table in a much greater sense. And maybe you could maybe weigh in on this one, Katie. Like, if you were at the table with your partner, if you're at the table with your friends, if it's a very kind of friendly atmosphere, I kind of imagine that it sort of doesn't matter because the motivation is less about winning money. Obviously, for some people in these mixed ability cash games, some of them are very much trying to win money and some of them are very much just trying to up their profile or have a good time or dunk around with some famous names. What's your view on, I suppose, how tolerant we should be of soft playing in that context, if it is the context of like two probably losing players just not really going hard at each other because they know each other?
I mean, I was at a cash game, funny enough, on Friday night, and there was a husband and wife at the table that everyone knew they were husband and wife. They were going at it with each other. they were really battling. It was actually the guy that won the Goliath this year, Kyle Jeffrey, and his wife Ellen. And they were having a good time. They were socializing. They were drinking a lot. I'm sure one of them ended up sleeping on the sofa at the end of the night as a result. It was, they were having fun and they were going at it. So I've definitely been on tables where that sort of things happen, where, they're willing to battle and it's very much socializing. I've probably been on tables where there's collusion as well and people playing together and If I've ever spotted it, I've just simply walked away, just not just removed myself from the situation. You know, I think that's the best bit. I would, obviously tournaments, it's different. You don't get that option. You don't get to walk away from your seat drawer. You get told where you're sitting. So you have to just be alert all the time and be aware that, you know, who are in stables together or who potentially has got percentage of someone else's action. I would say on the whole, most people don't play differently, but you know, everyone's so competitive nowadays. Well, not just nowadays, but people want that win. They want that title. They want that trophy. They know that there's bigger things at stake as a result of it as well. So perhaps even when they've got percentage of each other, they still want to go for the win. So you have to play. You have to carry on playing regardless of who it's against. That's my opinion on it. But I think I've seen that mostly with a lot of the youngsters coming through, the new sort of generation of players coming through. Yes, they have swapped action or they fought percentage of other players at the table, but they want it so bad themselves, they're just going for it.
Yeah, great points. On this one, I want to quote Ike Haxton, actually, who I think had my favorite take on why, while soft playing is against the rules, it's given a pass in certain situations. He wrote, amateurs breaking the rules in ways that don't stop them from losing at a steady clip are often tolerated. The operative principle here is that fish can often get away with anything as long as they are still willing to lose. In my opinion, that includes stuff that would be cheating if someone else did it. I would only be comfortable playing in a game where that was happening if I was certain the two people doing it were horrible at poker and not really trying to win. It's mild because of the implicit context, not because it's inherently a big deal. Dara, does that seem reasonable?
Yeah, that seems very, very reasonable. And I think on the whole soft play thing, like soft play in a tournament doesn't just affect the players in the hand, it affects everybody else. If two players are soft playing each other, then they actually have an advantage purely because of the way ICM works. But in a cash game, if it's a heads up pot and they decide to soft play each other, like nobody else is hurt. Nobody else loses, really. So it's even if it's a crime, it's a victimless crime. So I think in a cash game, you should be much more willing to accept, you know, maybe two friends will soft play each other, and a pot which between two other players at the table would have been massive ends up being small because they are the only two people really affected by that. In a tournament, if one player should have bossed the hand and they didn't because of soft play, then that hurts everybody else in the tournament, and it's a different situation.
Yeah, that's a very valid point, actually, about the difference between the cash games and the tournaments. Something to be aware of.
Yeah. Well, moving on, there's another scandal brewing. No. Well, actually, I'm trying to alert people to this one myself. Dara, we played the Battle of Malta, in which you cashed 4 times. I want to point out, bringing your lifetime tally to 199 cashes. Your double century sure to pop either this week in London or next week in Dublin. It's fair to say that the Battle of Malta has been a messy affair in previous years, almost maybe a victim of its own success. The sheer numbers are hard to manage, but also sometimes not great dealers and floor staff have been in attendance. This time around, there was a marked improvement, I have to say, in dealers, floor staff, and organizational staff behind the scenes. That was really obvious. We were through the turnstiles. It was all very efficiently run. And I have to say, for the most part, dealers were great. There was, however, one shocking inclusion in tournament director Thomas Kremser's presence, the infamous TD whose relationship with EPT was discontinued back in 2011 in the aftermath of accusations of skimming from side event prize pools. It's only correct to point out that Kremser and Stars parted company amicably, but that scandal was very big news at the time, and many took his departure to mean that while there was no hand in the till smoking gun moment, there was enough circumstantial evidence to feel like he just had to go. Katie, I'm interested now if you are familiar with this story. I don't know if there was a 10-minute/10-hour clip or maybe 10 minutes of mine that you might have had a browse over. I've been told quite a few people about this one. And what really interested me was only about half of them had even heard who Thomas Kremser was.
It's all news to me. That is the first time I've heard of any of that. I didn't play that much back in 2011. I knew the game, but was only playing like teeny tiny bits here and there at sociable Friday night, £10 game at the casino kind of thing. I don't know who that is, and I feel like I've been on the circuit quite a while now, so I don't recognise any of that scandal from 2011. You said.
Yeah, and you're not alone there. Like, the attrition rate in poker is fairly quick. Players come and go, staff come and go, and actually, once you cut 10 years later, actually a lot of the people are not the same people. So I think that's really understandable that people are unfamiliar with this one. In a way, that's the environment that lends itself to someone like him sort of worming his way back into our community, which I suppose I really didn't want to see. And that was my motivation for writing the article. To quote legendary Finnish journalist Juhani Tiraseva, known to many as Jussi, the case itself was quite clear, he said. The whole story came out thanks to Juha Helppi, who was one of 3 players left in the 5K side event tournament. The players were negotiating a chop, and Helppi noticed that the event had 80,000 chips more than there should be. It was quite obvious that the buy-ins for 4 players had been misguided, his words, from the prize pool. PokerStars put 20K back into that prize pool, but I do not know whether the money came from Kremser or came from the company's own pocket. Kremser's wife Marina and his friend Gerard handled all the money manually back in those days. That was before computerized systems. Poker player and documentary producer Mika Antonen was adamant about wrongdoing in this case. When he posted at the time to the 2+2 forum, he said, it's actually super interesting because this whole mess got swept under the rug by Stars. They still owe players hundreds of thousands of euros, rough estimation of mine from this. A PokerStars employee basically stole funds for many years, and once Stars found out, they decided not to tell anyone or refund anyone. There are hundreds and hundreds of people who fell victim to this scam, myself included. With his reputation in tatters, Kremser went to the Caribbean, I believe, after he was let go by Stars. We ran a few circuit events, but then pretty much vanished from tournament directing altogether. He has popped back up now. And of course, Battle of Malta is where we spotted him. And it is possible that the people from Battle of Malta were unfamiliar with this checkered past, a little bit like yourself, Katie, there. Maybe just people don't know the name, would see his resume as being, a really established, famous tournament director from bygone days, and thought, well, this is a guy just coming back into the industry. Dara, were you surprised when you spotted Thomas Kremser in the room? He was. It did seem like he'd had some work done, maybe a facelift and some new hair. So he was kind of in disguise.
I was just going to say, did you recognise him straight away? And
I didn't. I actually didn't recognise him immediately.
I'm not sure I saw him before the final table when I was doing commentary, but I did recognize him instantly. He has a very distinctive voice. You can change a lot about your appearance, but the voice stays the same. I was certainly surprised. I mean, given all that's alleged to have happened, even if times have changed now and tournament directors and their staff tend not to be the ones handling the money anymore. Tournament directors are essentially the referees of our sport, and they have to be above reproach. They have, we constantly get players outed as scammers, and that's horrible when it happens, and it's obviously reprehensible. But a player can only do so much damage. The guy who's the tournament director can do a lot more damage, and even if they don't have access to the funds, they can be corrupted in other ways. So I think when there's any question mark over somebody's honesty or integrity, that should completely disqualify them from that position. So I was certainly shocked to see him back. I did remember the reasons for his departure. They were very well publicized at the time, but as you say, poker has a huge turnover. People forget. Most people playing now weren't even playing back then, or certainly weren't playing at that level and wouldn't remember the stories. So it might be just a case that he feels like the statute of limitations is run out now, and he can get away with coming back. But it's certainly worrying. Any time somebody shows that slip of integrity, as I said, it should probably be a lifetime offence.
Yeah, really well said. Well, from one poker festival to another in Malta. Next week is the Malta Poker Festival. I always keep getting the names wrong, so I'm going to better be slow about how I say that, because I often interchange them.
Yeah, Malta Poker Festival, very difficult words to remember, David.
Malta Poker Festival. I think Battle of Malta.
Poker Festival in Malta. I mean, so hard.
This is what I have to deal with here, people. This is the abuse that I get. It's sort of this is workplace abuse. I'm going to speak to HR and Unibet. Malta Poker Festival is, of course, the brainchild of Yvonne. It's also sort of her second child. She was at the helm of the Battle of Malta in the early days, basically kind of developed its success in association with poker listings in the early days over at Portomasso. And once it was sold to Casino Malta, she wanted to have a big 500 quid festival that brought people to the island in Portomasso still. So this one is a 500k guarantee. It's been running for several years now. It's been growing each year, I think, pretty much. It had a spring edition this year. Obviously, there was a bit of a weird missing one for COVID, and they sort of replaced it in the spring. But the normal spot in the schedule is around now. As is tradition, the MPF, I'm going to call it MPF, actually, that makes my life easier, will have a host. And this year, it is none other than our guest, Katie Swift. Katie, Yvonne described you in a recent interview as a talented poker player, focused and hardworking, a present and driven mother, wife, daughter, and businesswoman who seems to juggle the poker career, her other work, and her personal life in a brilliant manner. This does echo something Dara and I have often said about you. Where do you find the time for all this?
I have no idea, to be honest. Honestly, sometimes I sit back and if I listed everything I did, I don't know how I do it. But I always say I've got a great support network around me, great family, good friends. My friends are really understanding when I go off the radar from one week to the next, you know. I've got really good, solid friendships where, you know, like where you pick up where you left off with people, and it's just, you know, nothing changes. It's really good. And of course with Grosvenor, they're really supportive. They know I'm hardworking, and that's just always been my character. I've always crossed every T and dotted every I in everything I do. So if I always think if I'm going to do something, I am literally like, I'm all in. Like, I either do it or I don't. And I enjoy it. I only do things that I enjoy doing. I think that's a real important thing to do, like to prioritize, you know, your things you find happy, things that you want to put your face and name to and that you enjoy. There's too many people in life that don't enjoy what they do, and I have never understood that. There's too many things out there and opportunities that you can do what makes you happy. So that's what I do. So I don't mind not sleeping very much because I'm happy. So I'm really looking forward to going to Malta. It'll be my first time out there. I've never been for poker or for a holiday or anything. So it'll be a complete new trip, new, you know, adventure for me. When Yvonne asked me to do it, it was like months ago. She contacted me and was like, how can we get you to be the host for the ladies' first event? I was obviously not expecting that, and I approached Grosvenor and asked if it was okay to do it. I always do that out of respect for my sponsorship with them, and they were more than happy for me to go over and host it. I'm used to hosting it, like particularly women's events. Like, I'm used to hosting them from the Grosvenor ones that I've done in the past. But this will be on a different level because they're not necessarily ladies that I'm even familiar with that will be there. And obviously an international one and a country and a tournament that I've never been to before. So it will be a whole new experience. And I hope that I can, you know, do the tournament justice and do Yvonne proud and, you know, do my best. That's what I do.
Well, a standout feature of the Malta Poker Festival is the ratio of women who attend. At the last stop in the spring, it was impressive to see such a huge female turnout. I was there every day, and it was really noticeable. Like 2 women per table was pretty much the norm. The GG Flip Ladies event at Battle of Malta last week, I have to say, was a little bit of a damn squib, bit of a flop, falling way short of its guarantee in the end. What expectations do you have for the MPF Ladies First event that you're hosting? No pressure.
I actually don't have any. I don't know what to expect, to be honest with you. I don't know what numbers it will achieve. I think the festival's quite different because historically it ran back to back with the Battle of Malta, from what I've heard. So it was almost like players that went out to play the Battle of Malta would then just continue their trip and play the Malta Poker Festival as well. So I'm not going to lie, I think that's going to affect numbers this year because people have already gone to the Battle of Malta. They can't really stay out there for just 2 weeks, like hanging around doing nothing. And to then come home and fly back and have the whole sort of do Malta again might be a bit much for people. There is also massive clashes with other festivals going on at the same time. I know there's a big EPT in London. There's you guys just said there's the IPO. There's loads of other festivals in that particular week. It is half term, which could actually go in its favour, where parents, players are off, you know, for kids can be looked after or taken with them, perhaps on like make it a sort of a little mini holiday. So I don't really know exactly what to expect. But I have heard that there is a high percentage of women playing out there. So I know that some of the ladies I know from the UK will be going over. I just was at a GUKPT last week in Luton, and there was actually, I played a bounty event where I was massively surprised, but like really happy to see that every single table had at least one female on it. And there was 3 tables that had 3 females, a couple that had 2, and there was one with 4 women on it. It was honestly so good to see. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. I know that not everyone understands it, gets it, or agrees with it, but from my perspective, the whole networking side of what you achieve from having the female only events is huge in terms of like what the rest of the poker industry receives from it, because then women gain their confidence, they have like a network around them, a support sort of web, if you like. And I've created a WhatsApp group recently that has now got over 100 women in it. It's pinging all the time, don't get me wrong. It's like everyone's chatting on there, but you know, it's lovely to have. And as a result of that, everyone knew that we were at Luton. They knew that we were going to be playing this side event. Others were like, oh, we're going to come down. And just silly things like people are asking about what's the car parking situation, or, you know, is it sort of safe to get there, and who else is going to be there, and any sort of confidence you can give women for that, make it a safe environment, is good. You know, it's only ever going to be a positive thing. You know, I'm going out to Malta. I've never been there before. I am lucky in the sense that I would travel on my own. I travel quite a lot independently. But I'm fortunate that I know a lot of people that I know I'm never sort of really on my own. You know what I mean? So, but for women coming in, it's nice to be able to buddy up with someone, you know, to make the trip less expensive, even by room sharing and splitting costs and things like that, which you know, perhaps you wouldn't have so much of that if you didn't have that networking opportunity of the ladies' game. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And my expectation, I think, when people, getting back to your question about what's my expectation, people seem to think that you have to put a number on it. It's not always about the number of runners you get. It's more about what you get as a positive result of holding that tournament. And you can hold tournaments that get, you know, I've got the record in August for the Goliath Women's Championship that got 219 runners, which is fantastic. But it's the positivity around it and that networking that is the best achievement from that tournament.
Yeah, well said. The MPF is obviously a festival that puts the emphasis on recreational. You just mentioned Goliath there. I want to ask you about that. A few weeks ago, I wrote an article on the Goliath, and I guess it is, you could probably fairly say it is the biggest recreational poker festival in Europe now, and probably has been for quite a while. You have to take your hat off to Grosvenor. We're obviously Unibet ambassadors, and I think they're ambassadors from other sites as well who've made these acknowledgements. You really do have to take your hat off to Grosvenor for what they've achieved with this festival. Grassroots poker, not an easy nut to crack, not an easy thing to do. Probably, you know, small enough margins when you're talking about live poker and making it like even a profitable event, and you have to build the whole thing up. So I think they deserve a huge amount of credit, and I think even as ambassadors of rival sites, very happy to give it on something like that. Dara, what do you think operators can learn from the appeal of the Goliath?
It's basically just you have to market to recreational players in a way which makes sense to them. I think often people in the poker industry listen to the wrong voices. They listen to professional players or industry insiders who are not necessarily in touch with what appeals to recreational players. And the further we all started as recreational players. Some of us still remember vaguely what it was like. Some like Katie are actually have a really good sense of how recreational players think. But most pros very quickly sort of move into a different way of thinking and find it very difficult to even identify what recreational players want. And I think even going back to the Adelstein Lew story, you kind of saw that where pros were completely out of touch with how this came across to recreational players who just saw a recreational player being berated, not just berated for their play, but then being accused of cheating, and they couldn't understand that this looked so bad because again they're just so far removed from the recreational mindset. What I think Yvonne's great talent as a tournament organizer is that she understands the way recreationals think, and she understands that they are the people that you ultimately have to appeal to. I do share some of the concerns raised that it's going to be difficult for them this time because of the delay after the Battle of Malta. A lot of people used to go for the 2, and now she's going to essentially have to pull a different crowd. But I think no better woman than Yvonne. Like I know even from grassroots level in Ireland, one of the great grassroots organizers in Ireland is a guy called Rinty Monaghan, and Rinty is the kind of guy who can get 30 people to go to a tournament just because he organizes everything. And I know Yvonne has successfully identified him in Ireland, and him and his group are all traveling out to
brilliant
to that. Yeah, so I think Yvonne is very good at building these relationships. She's also a very good talent spotter. Katie's the best woman for the job, clearly, to host the ladies' event out in Malta. So it's no surprise to see Yvonne approach her. Like I know from talking to the Battle of Malta organizers, they were obviously very disappointed that their ladies' event flopped, and also that there were so few runners from the UK, which traditionally has been a rich source of people coming to play tournaments in Malta. So I think it always comes down to, as I said, just understanding what recreations want. And, Katie talked about people want to buddy up, people want to have a friendly face when they go there. And that's super important to recreationals. And we should never really lose sight of that.
Well said. Well, Katie, I want to ask you one more question on the topic of Goliath. You obviously made your name in some sense when you came second in that tournament in 2015. I always feel like some careers are inevitable and some careers are inspired from a result such as this one. Was it the case that this result gave you the confidence to go on in the way that you have in your career? Or do you think your rise in the game was going to happen anyway?
Oh, that's really interesting. I've never thought of it like that, and I've never been asked that. I think, I think it was kind of a little bit of both, if I'm honest. It was something that I've got my own business. I've always wanted to be independent and, work for myself and sort of have that freedom to pick and choose what I want to do. And obviously the financial security of that win I was able to then invest a little bit more into the poker, into my poker career, if you like more confidently. And I think this is a weird one, but I think it was more acceptable that I was then going to give it a shot, because I think it was quite a strange one for outsiders to understand, or not that I'm worried whether anyone accepts it or not, but it was like, other mums in the school playground, or like even family members or friends would perhaps having that result and then having a sponsorship as a result of it made it a viable option, made it more, I don't know what the word is, but just sort of helped a bit, I suppose, in that perspective. But I would have always played poker. I enjoyed it from the first hand I was ever dealt. Like, took a while for me to get there because my mum and dad had been like trying to sort of get me involved and said that I'd enjoy it. But I didn't think I would. I was quite young at the time. And then the minute I played, I just loved it. Absolutely loved it. I used to love playing Cluedo as a kid and trying to work out who did it and, you know, what room and it feels a little bit like that, poker. You're trying to work out the hands and you're trying to work out things. So I've definitely always enjoyed the game. So the thing is as well, I don't necessarily, it's a weird one, this as well. I don't necessarily regard myself as a pro in terms of, like, some other players play way many more hours than me. They are definitely traveling around more than I do. They're kind of it is their full-time job, their full-time profession, whereas me, it isn't, as much as I would love it to be. But I just, you know, I've got loads going on, business, family, work and that. So I'm never going to be able to, like, get up and just do poker all day, every day. But I actually think that is good for me. I think it complements and blends well with my life, that when I then play poker, it's my relaxation, and it is still very much in my mind as that it's like my hobby and my bit of me time, and I enjoy it for that. And I think because I enjoy it, I'm able to then do well at it and succeed. Whereas perhaps if I had the pressure of being a full-time pro, like what other pros have, where they have to make their money at it, who knows? I may not have done so well with it. I may have, like, blocked under the pressure of needing to get paid. Do you know what I mean? So I think the fact that I've blended both works well, and having that Goliath result was like the springboard, if you like, to doing it. But I mean, I'd had some other bigger wins online before that, but I think because I don't talk about my online so much, it goes under the radar, which I'm still more than happy for that to do. So therefore, when I would play live, no one kind of knew that I knew how to play, or like so much. I wasn't given as much credit, perhaps. So then I could actually play Goliath and get that result by going under the radar, which obviously doesn't happen now when I'm playing, but just different, isn't it?
It's a really interesting perspective.
Yeah.
Turning back to you, Dara, at the time of recording, we are packing our bags for UK IPT London. At the time of release, we're probably already there at the tables battling away. From there, we go to Dublin, home for you, away to Dublin for me, where we'll play the Unibet IPO. It is a shame it does clash with the NPF. We'd love to see it out here, Katie, but just unfortunate the way the scheduling has gone this time. Yeah. The online satellites have been absolutely massive, Dara, ahead of the IPO, with a record number of qualifiers looking like they're going to win their seats on Unibet Poker. We still got more satellites to go, actually. They were meant to stop now, but due to popular demand, we are adding lots of satellites. So I think even by the time this comes out, there will still be a few days more where you can win your way into the main event, the Chip Race Mystery Bounty. Let's be honest, that's the real main event, and the 1K High Roller. Dara, would you preview the Unibet IPO for me, please?
Yeah, first of all, it's a pretty short festival. It starts Wednesday and the last day is Monday, but it jam packs a lot of stuff in there, kind of similar to the Battle of Malta, where. So
you're doing it as well. Did anyone catch that? He almost made the same
I did remember the right
words me for Cruelly a moment ago.
But it was, yeah, like as soon as you bust one tournament, you can either re-enter that tournament again, or you can jump straight onto the next one. I think the buy-in levels are also set for recreational players in Ireland, so I think I think the side events will be very well attended as well. And there's a nice mix, you know. There is that high roller. Although I can hear people like Jack Hardcastle laughing at me describing a 1K as a high roller, but for recreational player, 1K is a high roller. We have the main event. We have the Chip Race Mystery Bounty. We're trying to put our name on every Mystery Bounty now from here on out. But I think Mystery Bounties really do generate huge excitement. and that in itself will there's going to be a live stream table as well. That's something which really adds to a festival. I think people just knowing that they can get on the live stream, or they can watch the live stream when they're not playing. And yeah, it's just a very well-rounded schedule with something aimed very much at recreational players, and that's essentially what the IPO has been from the start. The Irish Open, when I started, was a much bigger buy-in than it was now, which was out of the reach of most people. So the original idea of the IPO was, let's have something which everybody can play. And it always got great numbers from the start. And it has that tremendous tradition of being essentially the grassroots Irish Open, to the point of view that some people actually think it is the Irish Open. When I talk to foreign players, sometimes they talk about the Irish Open, but it becomes obvious that they're actually talking about the IPO, not the Irish Open. So very strong brand. It's great to see that it has persisted. It's great to see Nick in charge. I mean, I did intend to say that when we were talking about the Battle of Malta, that, you know, I didn't want to go to the Battle of Malta this year because the last one I was at, 2019, was such a shit show. I said, I'm never playing this festival again. It was one of the worst run festivals I've ever seen. Battle of Malta was one of the best run festivals I've ever seen. Maybe actually the best run of that size. So credit to the organisers for getting it right, but also credit to the people who worked there. And a lot of those people will be at the IPO. You know, Glenn Doyle, who we well know from Unibet, Nick O'Hara is the main man. And they were responsible for a lot of the improvements that we saw Battle of Malta make. So you can be sure as well that the IPO will be impeccably run, and hopefully there'll be no clock malfunctions.
Very good. Well,
I remember going to an IPO once, many years ago, actually. I think when Grosvenor were involved with it somewhere along the line, and vaguely remember playing an IPO.
Yeah,
I'll have to sort of put some of those on my schedules for next year, because doing a few different ones would be nice.
Oh, we'd love to welcome you there. Yeah, I think as a tournament, it's had quite a lot of sponsors, different sponsors over the years. I remember even Full Tilt had a go of it one year, but it has been Unibet property for, I think, the last 4 or 5.
I think
from our cold dead hands, Dara.
I think it might have gone Boyles, Full Tilt. It was Grosvenor for at least 1 year, and it was Winamax, I think, maybe a year or two before we came in. So it's certainly bounced around, but Unibet have claimed it for the last few years.
Yeah. Well, look, the next episode of The Lock-In will be a special on-location episode from the IPO, so you'll see me and Dara there. Do tune in for that. Before we go, we have one more plug we are contractually obliged to make. There is a brand new nightly schedule, MTT schedule on Unibet starting this coming Monday, featuring bigger guarantees, the lowest rake in the industry, special leaderboards, very likely overlay, and more PKOs. Dara, quickly tell us why less rake and more PKOs are better.
PKOs have kind of taken over online for a couple of reasons. They're much more fun than normal tournaments. They actually solve a lot of the problems of normal tournaments from the recreational perspective. Stalling, for example, is not really a good idea in a PKO. You're supposed to play it in a gambly style and try and build a stack so that you can take bounties. It encourages very loose play, which obviously is a lot more fun for recreational players than sitting there waiting for the nuts. So PKOs we've seen them take over on other sites to the point where 3/4 of the tournaments are PKOs now. We've been a little bit slow on that front, but it's good. It's fair to say that the new schedule does address that. And also it's good to see, like, there's basically going to be a decent nightly schedule now where there's going to be a number of games, 10K guarantee, and a few other big games on every single night, so that people can commit to playing for the night rather than just having only one game to play. And what was your second point after PK? Oh, rake. Yeah, rake is an interesting one because recreationals never, if we're honest, they never really think about it too much. And anytime I brought up rake, for example, earlier this year when Stars were apparently mistakenly or accidentally raking the hypers at the EPT 10%, and I brought it up, a lot of recreations said to me, look, we don't really care about rake. Like we just care about what the buy-in is, and we don't care what percentage of that goes in rake. Now that might be true in the sense that they're not directly concerned with it, but indirectly it does affect things because it's extra money out of the pool. It means they'll lose their money faster. they'll reach a point where they don't want to play any more faster if that's the case. So even if they think they shouldn't be concerned about rake, they should be really. And it's good to see Unibet committing to basically they're going to be the lowest rake at every price point. There will be no other site can come and say, oh well, at the mid stakes we have low rake, or at the high stakes they're literally matching the lowest rake right across the board, and that can only be good for the ecosystem long term as well.
Well said. Well, back to you, Katie, for a final word. Do you like the PKOs? Do you dabble in PKOs much?
Yeah, I like any poker. I'll play PKOs. I've played my first mystery bounty last week, which I really enjoyed and cashed in that. I play all different formats. I've started to play a lot more PLO games. I'm sort of dipping my toes in that. Cash games, tournaments, online, live. I played a lot. I'm probably not known for that, but yeah, I will. I play lots of different formats, and I enjoy that. I enjoy the variety and the options, and you can pick and choose. If you've only got a little bit of time, you might just want to play a little sit and go, but if you've got oodles of time on a Sunday afternoon, you might fire up a bigger session. So it's nice to have so many options now, which back in the day, you take it back a decade, you just didn't have that. It was all very samey, wasn't it? So yeah, it's nice. It's nice that the game has developed and there's more options. I have my own women's game every Wednesday that I host online, and there's lots of ladies that get into that and then play other things as a result, whilst they've got their session up, so it's good. Can I just also mention that I don't know when this show's going out, but there is actually a free roll for a Malta Poker Festival package on Thursday. I'm not sure if that's...
Do you know what we'll do? Just for you, Katie, we will put this show out on Wednesday so that the people...
Is that fitting really well with your schedule?
No, it was no, but I would, just as a personal favour.
Yeah.
Oh. It's going to be on Thursday at 8 p.m. on Grosvenor. It's a free roll for a package, which is going to be worth nearly €1,700. So, like, massive opportunity there for someone to win it. And there's like top 10 prizes as well on other things. But that's the sort of thing that poker operators are doing to help get people in the game and give a little bit back as well, which is really good to see.
Yeah, we can certainly all get behind those kinds of giveaways. That's great to hear. On that note, I'd like to thank our guest this week, Katie Swift.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me. Great to see you as always.
Well, we wish you all the best in Malta next week. Sorry we can't be there. And of course, I'd like to thank Dara O'Kearney as well.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks to Katie. It's always a delight to have Katie on the show.
It really is. Well, this has been the lock-in. Do you hear that, Joey Ingram? This has been the lock-in. Take care, everyone.
Copyright.